I'm Dr. Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. And as you know, we have our Powernomics conversations with the one and only Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets. And he also runs the Harvest Institute. The Harvest Institute is one of the great Black think tanks in this country. They're doing work that nobody else is doing, including a fight for reparations that's been going on for a long time. So I want to ask my friend, Dr. Claude Anderson, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I have no complaints today, boys.
Good, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll tell you what, there's been a lot going on in politics lately, and every time something interesting happens, that involves Black folks, I always ask myself, I wonder what Dr. Anderson thinks about this. And the reason I ask that, in my head is because, you understand history, you understand how to put it into context in ways that nobody else does. A lot of mainstream media is built on being very reactionary. They pretty much just kind of give you, this weird spin that doesn't always make sense to people that have common sense. And I think that understanding history really helps you put it into the right context. So I want to start by asking you about this. Lately there's been a lot of conversation about involving Trump and Trump's reaction to athletes. One of the most recent things that happened was the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if you know about this. They were going to go to the White House. And a lot of the Eagles players said, we're not going. We don't want to go meet Trump. We don't want to talk to the guy. And so Trump comes back and he uninvites them to the White House, which is unprecedented. Nobody's ever done that before. And so there's a conversation about what it means to be patriotic, what it means to not be patriotic. And Trump believes that these guys are not patriotic because they're not standing for the anthem. And these guys actually believe that they are the ultimate patriots because they're using the freedom of speech. They're fighting on behalf of the lives of Americans that have died in the street at the hands of the police, et cetera. What is your take on a lot of this when you see this back and forth with Trump and the athletes?
Well, first of all, let me say I understand Trump, who signifies white power in the country. I understand how general white society is totally ignorant of the issues pertaining to the Black athletes, and they would be very prone to say that those Black athletes are unpatriotic, because in our society, the default setting in our society, based on the Constitution, Dr. Watkins, the default setting is that white skin and white folk are the most patriotic people. They're the only patriot. So patriotism is definitely associated with being white. That's been ever since the 1790s. The Constitution set that up, that only white skin can be patriotic. That's why when you had the Revolutionary War, same thing occurred. That even though the southern states were the first terrorists in America that tried to destroy the country and went to war for the Civil War, and still nobody prosecuted them. They were given amnesty and given all the land and resources back. Then they turn around and re-enslave Black folk again for Jim Crow segregation for another 100 years. And so Black folk were always the people who are criminalized, not the South. And so, so to my points, let me try to clarify this and give some very specific points. And I want all of your students to hear this, because hopefully I won't have to do this a second time, a third time, a fourth time. People need to understand that President Donald Trump declares Black athletes as non-patriotic. Now, Black athletes are failing in their understanding of history, that they do not set a predicate for avoiding people like Trump in the white society, understanding why they avoid standing and singing and pledging allegiance to America for the national anthem. And so it is very insultive for whites in general, or Donald Trump in particular, to keep declaring Black folk as being being unpatriotic. Now let's talk about it. See, first of all, Native Blacks are the oldest population. Point one, I want your Black listeners to hear this, Dr. Watkins. I want them to take note on this. I want them to write this down so it'll be embedded in their memories as long as they live on this earth. First of all, the Native Blacks, not African American, but Native Blacks are the oldest population in this country. And on this earth, they were the first people on earth. They're the oldest. So you can't be unpatriotic about anything other than that. You're the oldest population in the country. Point two, that 99% of all the Native Blacks are direct descendants of slaves, and were here before 99% of all the other people, ethnic group, class group, gender groups ever arrived. They were the first. They're the oldest, and they're the first here, and in this country. Three, they were the economic engines. that drove the development of this country. Their labor brought it to be the most powerful nation on the earth. It was their labor. They laid the foundation for the economics of this country. They also laid a foundation for this country's culture, came strictly and solely out of black labor. They were the people that produced the products. They were the people that cleared the fields of rocks and trees and animals. They were the people that dug the canals and built the railroads. They were the people that built the institution buildings in this country. That was the black labor did it, not immigrants. The immigrants weren't even in this country. The Europeans were not here in sufficient numbers. Neither were the Asians or Hispanics. It was blacks. And since they were building the country and producing the products and services and good and the infrastructure, you can't get any more patriotic than that. The country was founded on black labor and the unpaid labor of black people. And the culture was built off of them. And the Constitution was built off of them. That said that they would be an underclass, a permanent underclass, 3/5 of a human being, treated equal to a field animal, even though they were the backbones of the nation. The next point is that they're the only group that's fought in every war that this country has ever engaged in, Dr. Watkins. Make sure your students understand that black people, native blacks, are the only group, the only ethnic group that has fought in every war since the founding of this nation. And no other country can make that declaration. And not only were they fought in every war, but they're the only group whose mother country has never gone to war against this nation. They're the only group. This country has fought every ethnic group, almost every nation on earth, but they never fought black folk. They never fought Africans. That makes them a very special people, exceptional people in terms of patriotism that no other group can proclaim. No group can make any claim stronger than those points I just made to you. Now let's see how that winds up with Donald Trump now. In terms of Donald Trump, in a society where they benefited, every group coming to America, every immigrant group, Asians, Arabs, every culture group, every religious group, every gender group has profiteered and exploited off of blacks people in this country. They've been the people who've enriched everybody in this country and enriched every nation. Every ethnic group, every political party on earth has been profiteered and exploited black folk. That's around the world, not just on this country. Now, let's go back a few more minutes for a few more explanations. See, let's go back to the Revolutionary War, show patriotism. Let's track patriotism again. So that Donald Trump would cease and desist in making these stupid, asinine, insulting statements about black people in America, native blacks being unpatriotic. Let's eradicate that this day for final and forever. Now let's go back to the Revolutionary War when you had blacks coming to this country, back to the 1600s as example. The first 3 people killed in the Revolutionary War were black people. They were the first people killed in the Revolutionary War. The fight to try to get freedom and independence from England or from Britain and for the British, for white colonists coming to the country. It weren't white people that fought and got killed, the first one to get killed in the war. It was black people fighting for them to give them a freedom. The first 3 people killed in the Revolutionary War were black people, even though they were not free, but they were still silly enough to some degree to fight to get freedom for whites, even though they didn't have freedom themselves. Let's go up a few more years from that. That when the first capital in the United States, federal capital, was set up in Philadelphia. The federal capital, that's before it moved to Washington, D.C. In 2 instances, the British tried to burn down Philadelphia, Dr. Watkins. Tried to burn down Philadelphia, what was the nation capital, and they also tried to burn down Washington, D.C. Guess who stopped them? You had 800 black slaves. 800 black slaves came out off the plantations, went out and stopped the British from burning down Philadelphia. They stopped the British from burning down Washington, D.C. How the hell you gonna get more patriotic than that to saving the country when you saved the nation's capital twice, Dr. Watkins? Black people, the native blacks saved this nation's capital twice. Then later on, when the Southern conservatives, again, the first terrorists on earth in the South, decide they want to maintain slavery and attack this country in Fort Sumter, South Carolina, fired on Fort Sumter and started the Civil War. They were the first terrorists in America that started the Civil War. And when the war started in the South, and they were trying to destroy and take over this nation, the North joined in and as a Union force to stop the South from as terrorists from destroying the nation. And guess what? When they first started drafting the soldiers to come in on the Union side to fight to preserve this nation, and to keep it as an independent nation against the South. Guess what? Over 200,000 whites paid dividend checks. They bought labor. They paid people to go to war in their stead. The rich ones did. They didn't go to war just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump got exemptions 5 times to go to war to protect his nation. How in the world can somebody avoid going to war 5 times and call somebody else patriotic? And the same thing occurred, Dr. Watkins. I know you got to let me finish all this now. Donald Trump declares it. They're unpatriotic when it's ducked to war 5 damn times. And now the same thing happened in the Civil War. The rich whites in the Civil War, they paid poor people to go substitute for them in the draft. So they paid them so they would not have to go to war. Then worse than that is after the war started, the Civil War started, and within the first year and a half, you had over 200,000 whites, Dr. Watkins, that went AWOL, AWOL. They went AWOL. They turned coat and ran off, refused to fight. They walked away from the army, left the Union Army, scared and did not want to fight for this country's welfare, well-being, to maintain this nation. Over 200,000, getting close to 250,000 whites abandoned the Union Army. So they didn't care about what happened to the United States. These were whites, they abandoned. And guess what? The United States made a difference in the Union Army by, guess what? By recruiting about 260,000 ex-slaves. They recruited about 260 ex-slaves to come in and replace those whites who refused to fight, and those who abandoned the country, ran off and left the country, crippled, to fight the Southern terrorists. They put in 260,000 blacks into the Union Army to fight for them. And now, here you come now, after that, they come up with in the 1800s, come up with Union flags with national anthem, where we want to all say and pledge allegiance to this country for patriotism. And guess what? What these black athletes should be saying if they were to learn history and go read my books for a change, go read Black Labor, White Wealth, go read Powernomics, go read Dirty Little Secrets and the Black History. They learn some of these things so they won't be a joke on TV and given a foundation for whites to talk about who's a patriotic and who's non-patriotic. These blacks need to understand this history so they won't stop disgracing their own people. Now here you're talking about Francis Scott Key, who wrote the national anthem. Francis Scott Key, who wrote the national anthem, was a darn slave owner. He was a slave holder and was working at a law firm out of Washington, D.C., trying to make sure that you maintain slavery, Dr. Watkins. He wanted to maintain slavery. And he wrote, and guess what? And in the national anthem, the 3rd stanza codifies, legitimizes slavery. Why in the hell would you be asking black folk to stand up and pledge their allegiance to a flag, to a national anthem, to a song that was written by a slave owner, perpetuated by a slave owner, and talked about legalizing and ceremonying slavery in the United States? I mean, that is unheard of. Then and those blacks, instead of kneeling, they should say, no, here's why we're not gonna respect the flag. If we have an option, we can if we want to, but if we don't have to, we don't have to. This nation should respect black folks. Say you are exempt for all the things that you've done in this nation to preserve this nation, to fight for this nation as the only people from day one, before the country was even a country, all the way up to the present time. You're the only people. They're the exceptional people. You don't have to fight. You don't have to stand. You don't have to swear allegiance, because nobody's more patriotic than you. But see, where we fall short is that nobody talks about the flag and also about the song, the national anthem, how it was slave-based, slavery-based, and how they've done everything to make black folk pure unpatriotic when they're the most patriotic people in the country. So that's the long and the short of it. What black folk need now is for people to respect them as being the most patriotic citizens in this country. Native black Americans deserve recognition. They deserve appreciation. They deserve respect, and they deserve reparations. And until black folk get off their sorry asses, start standing up and demanding respect and appreciation and recognition based on historical incidences and events, then they're always going to classify them as being non-patriotic, and people like Donald Trump and all these conservatives that have attacked this country and tried to destroy it and never fought to do anything for it can proclaim themselves as being the most patriotic based on their skin color.
Everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson is the author of Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets. A lot of his books are at harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org, where you can also make a donation if you support the work there. Also, we have some copies in the Black Business School at blacklaborwhitewealth.com. That's blacklaborwhitewealth.com. If you're watching anywhere on social media, take a second and please share the word. This isn't the kind of conversation you're going to see on CNN or anywhere else. This is an intelligent discussion. This is a Black discussion. This is an honest discussion. This is a direct discussion. This is the information that lies beneath the surface. You know, everything you see on TV when it comes to all of this, and I'll bring this brings my question, Dr. Anderson. Everything we see on TV about this, you know, about this whole conversation about the Pledge of Allegiance, because CNN called me the other day, and I wasn't really excited about talking about it because I knew it would be a fluffy 5-minute, yap fest, designed for ratings. And I'm not into that. I'm really into really digging to the heart of it and really understanding where Black folks need to be and putting Black folks first. But when you look at this protest, one of the things I've gathered from a lot of the athletes is that, when they kneel, they're not kneeling to try to disrespect the flag or disrespect the anthem. They ain't trying to disrespect anybody. I have interpreted their decision to kneel as a show of respect for all the Black people, particularly the Black men and the Black women who've been killed by the police. When you hear Colin Kaepernick, who started a lot of this, talk about it, he was talking about just drawing attention to the death of Black people. And he said, look, I'm not trying to disrespect anything. And what you're saying, it sounds like, is that there's a whole nother layer of this. It's like, yeah, you're kneeling or you're showing your protest, whatever it is, to show respect to your loved ones who've been killed and those in your community who've been killed, which is quite honorable, I think. But also, you're saying that you should never really be pledging allegiance to this, with this anthem in the first place. It's this anthem itself. It represents something that it has never been beneficial to you and your family. It represents the rape and the murder and the castration of your ancestors. It represents Black people being hung from trees. The guy, Francis Scott Key, who wrote this, has probably killed Black people just for being Black. He's probably raped some Black women because they were his slaves. He felt that Black people should be enslaved. So why in the world would you be pledging allegiance to this song and to this person, and this message from this person who wants you and your family dead? Nobody else, nobody in their right mind would do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's again, because our people have this fantastic, nasty habit of majoring in the minors, digging in minutia, messing with the insignificant, irrelevant. To try to focus your protest on the fact that you've had that police have killed Black folk. Who cares at that point in time? They've been doing that for centuries. That's not the major issue. It's bad. They should have never been doing it, but they've been doing it because it's built into the Constitution. The Second Amendment of the Constitution gives them authorization to shoot Blacks and kill Blacks. You got to question. You got to go back and understand history. See, the Second Amendment was in the Constitution about gun control, and also about police and militias, was strictly and solely designed to maintain slavery and to be able to monitor and patrol and control Black folk in slavery, and to make sure Black folk were unarmed and unprepared to fight back and create a revolt, a slave revolt or a slave insurrection. And that's why the first police in the United States came out of South Carolina were called plantation police. And after that, every colony enacted laws, Dr. Watkins, that says that every state must have a militia. You all got another name for them now. They call, what's it called, the armory, what's it called, reserves now. You call them reserves now, but military reserves. But in those days they were called militias, which means they held it in reserve in case of possible slave revolts and slave insurrections. And it required that every white male between the ages of 18 and 45 must register with the state militia, or what you call state reserve, to be prepared to bear arms, to be able to come out and fight to put down in its insurrection a slave revolt that is a threat to white property, white lives, and the white status quo and control of this country. So black folk, they got to wake up and smell the coffee. There's no way on earth that after almost 500 years of slavery and Jim Crow segregation, that you should still be totally obliviously ignorant of history. And every time you go out, you major in the minors, dig in minutia. Well, you know, they killed my brother, so that's why I'm against it. No, you go back and try to rectify it and present and recognize and demand that this entire country recognize the exceptionality of black folk in this country. I've been preaching this now in all my books: Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader. Now, ever since 1980, when I wrote the first affirmative action plan in the United States for black folk. Yeah, I am totally mystified and disappointed that I see all these blacks on TV, the blacks overclass, who are totally indifferent to understanding the nature of a problem, instead of going back and say, here is a structural basis of these problems. And they've never tried to correct the purpose of slavery and the whole Constitution and why it was based to maintain the present relationship with blacks and whites. They've gone through all this gymnastics for 360 years about slavery. They spent another 100 years talking about Jim Crow segregation. Now they spent another 50 years talking about political correctness and still talking about marching in the street, talking about Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, damn it, go find out why you have no value, why you're being mistreated, abused, and exploited by everybody. Why every immigrant can come to this country and run over you at 200 miles an hour and get ahead of you. Come in and show me why. Let me give you an example. Right here in Montgomery County. Montgomery County, Dr. Watkins, is about the richest county in the United States. You go over here right now, you go to the school system, they got the best school system, public school system in the United States. It's 10 miles from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. You come into Montgomery County, you go to the school system, 60 to 70% of all the students are immigrants into the country, getting access to the best schools, the best quality schools, the best education, tax-free. Tax-free. They're just walking into the country and taking over the school system right here in Montgomery County. You go down to Washington, D.C., where the school system are totally crippled, dysfunctional, and aren't producing anything in terms of competitive, educated black children. Or in Detroit, Michigan, where 50% of the damn black kids graduating from high school can't even read and write. It's a disgrace. And you got immigrants now, and you got Democratic Party begging to bring in more immigrants. And no blacks at this, blacks, yeah, we need more immigrants. We're going to take over the nation. We're people of color. Nobody's that damn stupid. And I get angry about that. And I have to apologize to your listeners and anybody who sees this broadcast, but I'm sadly disappointed and as well as mystified after 50, 60 years of fighting for black folk in the highest levels of government, when I've been in with nations, when I've been with governors and presidents, and led up trade missions around the world. I'm tired and sick and tired of seeing black folk function at a low level of ignorance about history and trying to solve a problem. You cannot solve these problems unless you go back to the basis of the problem. You can't go into a doctor's office and let it look at the symptoms and let him cure you by facing his examination strictly on the symptoms and giving you medication or prescription based on the symptoms. He must say, I got to find what the cause of these problems are. What's the history of these problems? How long have you had it? Is it peculiar to family to have diabetes and cancer? But see, they won't do that. They want to go out and do these superficial things, which white folks begin to conclude that black folk are nothing but a joke. And all these immigrants coming to this country is taking over the country in all these cities. They're gentrifying all the cities, privatizing all the resources. They're going to bury black folk while black folk major in the minors and dig in the minutia.
Everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader. If you'd like to support the work happening at the Harvest Institute, you can actually go to harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. He's also a member of the Black Business School. So if you have not joined the Black Business School, just know that we have experts from all different backgrounds, including people like Dr. Anderson. We have 3 attorneys on staff, as well as 4 PhDs now. Dr. Shauna Etienne, Dr. Tyra Selden, myself, Dr. Venetia Dutra, etc. So if you want financial literacy for your whole family, wealth building for your whole family, learn real estate, everything across the board, come to theblackbusinessschool.com. That's where we get it done. Now, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you.
Dr. Let me conclude one other point before you go to your next point. In this whole situation and how they trick black folk is, see, racism is vertical. It's a vertical structure running from the highest to the lowest. It came into existence in about 500 some years ago in Europe. And see, what Trump is saying is they dilute and recodify everything just like they did in the Constitution and tell you this whole business about the black athletes failing to to honor the national anthem, that it's a cultural issue, that we were engaged in a cultural war. And see, culture is a horizontal issue. Culture is horizontal. It applies to anybody all around the world. Everybody has culture. Culture is nothing but a learned behavior pattern that people pass on from one generation to the next. Everybody got culture. It's not a darn culture war. It's a race war. It's a personal racism. And black folk have never fully understood that when you institutionalize a whole race of people or a whole population on the earth because of blackness and identification or association with Africa, that is a declaration of war. That's not culture. That's a declaration of war. Slavery was a declaration of war against black folk, not against Asians, not against Arabs, not against Hispanics, not against gays, not against midgets, not against humpbacks, one-legged, one-eyed, pig-legged, pink-toed, people with hemorrhoids, anything else. It was against black people. You're fighting to struggle to survive, and conditions are going to worsen very quickly. And they're going to keep using these very broad horizontal issues. Culture is a horizontal issue. It has nothing to do with racism. So is these issues about Me Too and sexual harassment. Those are horizontal issues that take the focus off of black folk and put it on immaterial secondary issues that they fabricated to make sure you're distracted, bamboozled, and continue to maintain the status quo and race matters. Issues turn about immigrants. That's a horizontal issue. It goes on and on, but verticalness is racism only against black folk. And so you're going to hear Donald Trump say, we're in a cultural war. He's lying to you, and he's going to BS black folk, and black folk are going to go for it every time, as we've done ever since they picked us up on the beaches in Africa by waving yellow bright cloth and run and kidnap you and shipping you around the world in a 16 million volume.
Dr. Anderson, let me ask you about this. This week, Donald Trump was apparently, obviously, for political reasons, he actually released a black woman from prison. Her name was Alice Marie Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. And Alice Marie Johnson had received a life sentence, I think on a conspiracy charge for a drug conviction over 20 years ago. She was going to be in prison for life without parole. And you know how they use the RICO charges to put people away. I know a guy who got 14 life sentences and without parole, and he's been in prison since the 80s. All his children grew up without their father because of things that he did in 1983. And so Trump worked with Kim Kardashian to go and get the lady out of prison. And of course, they're parading it all through the media. They want everybody to know about it. And the thing is, when I found out about it, I was happy for the woman. I was real happy for the woman. I don't care who let her out. I don't care if it was Satan who let her out. The woman deserved to be out. And now two things bother me. Number one, obviously, for every one person they let out, there's thousands more that should be let out. There's thousands more that are still going to be locked up. So one release is symbolic. That's all it is. It's not. It means a lot to that person, but doesn't mean a lot for the whole country. The second question I ask myself is, why didn't Obama let her out? Why when she applied for clemency under Obama, the Obama administration rejected. I think 2 or 3 times they rejected her. So Trump comes in and says, look, black people, you say that I'm racist, but hey, your black president didn't let this lady out. I'm going to let her out. What do you think about this? Clearly it's a publicity stunt. Clearly it's just politically motivated. But the Obamas did a lot of things for publicity. They did most of what they did was politically motivated. So I'm trying to figure out how to contextualize this. How should black folks kind of see this action on the part of Trump, if it means anything at all?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you at 100%. See, first of all, the woman should not have been maltreated all those years. And they owe her reparation of compensation for having mistreated and abused her by over-imprisoning her for some simple infraction, misdemeanor that was committed against her for years ago. They need to reparate that woman for doing that. And I totally agree with you. The second thing is that in terms of the black overclass, whether it's was Obama, anybody else in the black overclass, please do not mistakenly believe that, and let me disabuse them of their belief that somehow that the members of the overclass can do anything to help black folk. It ain't never gonna happen. No members of the black overclass can do a darn thing to help resolve the race issues in America. They're not gonna do it because they're too limited and restricted. Most of them are on a performance-based contract, which means they have to perform just like gladiators in an arena, or whether they're on a stage or someplace on TV. They are there to perform and get paid. And they're in a safe category. They've already earned meritorious manumission. They're gonna do anything for black folk. Black folk must understand that we have no allies and no friends, even among our own people. If you're going to social integrate, start.
Hey, Dr. Anderson, can you hear me? Are you guys able to hear me? If you're inside of here, you can hear me. Let me.
1,000 black folk in this country were doing extremely well. We had about 6,000 or 7,000 blacks who today would be classified as millionaires, right, during slavery. But they didn't do anything to help black folk because there's no connection between anybody getting power and resources and trying to use it to emancipate the black people in this country by going down and dealing with the roots of the problem. What black folk get caught on, they never get caught past dealing with the symptoms and ceremonious issues. That's why every politician in America could buy the black population anytime they want to by engaging in symptomatic issues and ceremonious issues. Like, well, you know what, if you put me in office and elect me in office, even though I can be a racist, but what I'll do though, I'll hire a black secretary, or I'll go into one of your neighborhoods and I'll name a street after Rosa Parks, or I'll give you a Martin Luther King Boulevard, or I'll put some basketball courts up on inside. See, all that superficial stuff. And I blame my own people to a big degree because we sit and let people symptomatically misuse and abuse us by giving us symptoms. So what I tell black folk in Powernomics is that tell them if they don't deal with the roots of the problem, we don't need you to deal with anything. And right now, since the problems of slavery have never been addressed, not in the history of this nation. What was the purpose of slavery, Dr. Watkins? Very simple. It was to systematically maldistribute almost 100% of all this nation's land, minerals, resources, rights, businesses, privileges, opportunities, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society, and an unending influx of immigrants coming into the country who could share in it under the guise of what they call the American dream. That was slavery. That's the basis of slavery. When has any black folk in America, in the overclass or in the media, ever tried to correct it? When has your politician tried to correct that? When has the civil rights organization tried to correct it? They didn't try to correct it. What they try to do is put whipped cream on boo-boo by saying, well, we won't correct what was done to black folk. What we'll do, we'll just have social integration. Say, well, can we just be a guest? We don't have to own and control anything. But can we just be a guest in your neighborhood, in your school, in your business, in your theaters, on your buses? See, all that's BS. And see, and I say this very forthrightly now because at my age, I could care less. I'm tired of black folk being misled, bamboozled, tricked, and brainwashed and doing things that is not in their own self-interest. Put your own self-interest first and say, and if you're not going to try to redistribute the resources, some of the land, the businesses, the opportunities, if you're not going to try to build black communities back the way they were, and allow black folk to function as a competitive group, if you're not going to give us the same privileges and rights and resources you're giving to immigrants, you've been given to immigrants since 1790. Every immigrant comes here looking for unearned benefits. When will black folk get some unearned benefits? The minute the blacks mention anything like food stamps or welfare, y'all looking for something free. Hell, they ain't looking for something free. They paid for it 300, 400, 500 years ago. You just never delivered the resources. So it's symptomatic about people fail to go all the way to the base, to the roots, Dr. Watkins, and deal with the problems.
Everybody, I want you guys to know, if you came in from Black Enough, I invite in those of you who are part of blackenough.com. That's our new social media platform. Make sure you sign up at Black Enough, BLAGGENUF. So if you're tired of Facebook's garbage, we actually have a platform that's ours. It's all black. It's at BLAGGENUF, blackenough.com. So the question we ask is, are you black enough? So if you are black enough, you can join us at blackenough.com, BLAGGENUF.com. Those of you in Black Enough, I invited you guys in so that I can hit a button and let you guys ask a question. So we don't have a lot of time, but if you have a quick question for Dr. Anderson, then I will let you, I'll hit a button and let you talk, and you can ask him your question. Just please, out of respect for his time, because his time is short, I just ask that you keep your question concise so we can get to the point of it. Also, I want everybody to know, make sure you go check out harvestinstitute.org. That's where Dr. Anderson's Harvest Institute has been doing really good work for the black community, real work, the work that we need. And the reason that I want to work with him is, the reason I reached out to work with him is because, you know, he digs to the root of things. You know, he digs through the history of things. And a lot of what we do, what you see in the media, is nothing more than surface symbolism. In fact, I would say that the Trump and the Obama presidencies are very frustrating for anybody who's intelligent, anybody who's a deep thinker, anybody who plays chess and not checkers. If you play checkers, then the whole 8 years Obama was in office was a wonderful time, nothing but a party. Let's all get together and do the electric slide, and then go back to our hood where we broke as hell and struggling and ain't got no jobs. If you are a person that plays chess, you looked at the Obama presidency and said, okay, it's nice that you and your family are doing well, Barack. We're very happy for you, but that symbolism means nothing if there is no substance behind it. So the substance is what Dr. Anderson brings to the table, and you only get to an understanding of the substance if you understand history. So Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you a question about something that I thought was a good thing that happened in the Black community this past week. Jay Morrison, he's a real estate guy. You know, he reached out and to me, and he told me about this thing he was doing for Black folks, where he wanted Black people to be able to invest in real estate and resources, to be able to fund ventures, to be able to buy the block, have a Black Wall Street, things like that. So he created something called the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. And so Jay, he went and he got SEC approval for this Tulsa Real Estate Fund, and he sold these shares for $50. And he went to the Black community and asked Black folks to invest. Now, I looked over the paperwork. You know, everything I saw looked good. I don't know anything about the inner workings of how he runs his organization, but I did see that it looked fine to me. I asked him a lot of questions. He answered the questions very well, and I made an investment in it. And it turns out a lot of people invested in it. Last time I checked, I think he got 9,000 investors, and he raised $10 million. $10 million that he says, I hope, and I'm assuming this kid, I can't speak for him, but he says that he's going to invest this in the Black community, buying buildings, buying real estate, buying other forms of real estate, opening schools, maybe funding movies, or buying, just any sort of project, any sort of businesses that can benefit from the community. I thought it was pretty significant because I said, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we got places where lumps of money are being raised, and people are able to really go and buy the neighborhoods and things like that. Also, Andre Hatchett is doing some similar stuff, as well as the Dr. Venetia Dutra. What do you think about efforts like that? I mean, how do you feel about just methods that we can sort of pool our resources together and go out here and really get something done on a bigger scale? I mean, do you think that that's progress for the community? And what do you think should be sort of kept at the forefront of mind as people move forward with ventures like that?
Okay, that's an excellent question, Dr. Watkins, and it's very simple for me to respond to it. And that is that racism is a team sport. It's a team sport. Either you play as a team or you lose by default. Now, we have been taught and socially brainwashed for 500 years not to play as a team, because when you play as a team, that is a threat. It magnifies your potential for power and resources, playing as a team. For instance, the Jews right now play as a team. What makes Jews powerful in this nation around the world is not what one Jew owns, it's what Jews own collectively and play as a team, even though they're whites playing as a team based on their religion. And so, and everybody plays as a team but us. We've been condemned because we are a threat to most people. See, we are the loot, the boot. We are the people we are the those who are going to be pimped and hustled. We are the prostitutes and the whores on the street. They're going to be misused and abused. Nobody wants all the poor people, the whores and the prostitutes, to create a union. You know what happened if all the whores went out on the street and all the prostitutes all of a sudden started creating a union? We're going to unionize all the prostitutes. That would mean power. So even though everybody misuse, exploit us, and use us like whores on the street, once you started coming as a team, that's a threat. And I've had a lot of groups saying, Dr. Anderson, you keep talking about organizing as a team. Well, I'm a Hispanic, and we have stores. We make a lot of money off of Black folk. Black folk are our customers, and Arabs tell me the same thing. They say we sell to our own people and we sell to Black folk, and everybody says that. And as a matter of fact, I'm trying to think of the guy right now. What's his name now? He was in the Contra thing. Colonel North,
Oliver North.
Yeah, North, yeah. And I had a little debate with him once. He said, Dr. Anderson, I'm not a racist. He says, I said, why do you think, Oliver North, that you're not a racist? Because even though most of your attitudes are negative towards Black, what gives you a hint or a suggestion that you're not a racist? He said, well, because he says, I hire a lot of black folk, and I got in my companies, and I got a lot of friends who hire black folk. So therefore, we couldn't be racist. I said, then first of all, you don't understand what racism is. But let me just follow that with a question in reverse. How many times have you and your friends ever worked for black folk? How many times have you gone to work for black folks? Since you're taking pride in the fact you employ black people, and they work for you, when have you ever worked for black folk? He said, well, we never have. And I said, then that's racist. You got the resources, and you want to exploit their labor to enrich yourselves. I said, that goes all the way back to Maryland colony in 1638. It says that black people will never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. They'll be used to enrich and bring personal wealth and comfort to white people. That was a public edict put out in 1638 by the Maryland colony, the state of Maryland. It hasn't changed. Everybody wants to see black folk as employees, where they can be enriched off of their labor. That is capitalism. But you cannot find anybody that wants to put black folk, go out of their way to enrich black folk to a position where black folk can now begin to exploit and use other people's labor. Nobody puts them in a position because, see, getting economic power as a team is a threat. So why is it a threat in the bottom line? Because right now, the $1 trillion that might pass through black folks' hands every year, Dr. Watkins, 98% of it goes right into the hands of whites, immigrants, and everybody else. Black folks spend 98% out of every dollar they get, put it in the hands of whites to enrich them. Black folk only keep 2% of their money in their own neighborhoods, in their own businesses. That means, and what that means at the bottom line of my comments now, is that whites, Asians, Arabs, Hispanics, and all religious groups live off of two damn incomes. They live off of 100% of their money and 98% of black folks' money, because they boycott black businesses, they boycott black communities, because blacks don't have any communities, what they got in neighborhoods. You cannot convince black folk while they're enjoying the fruits of a social illusion called social integration, you cannot convince them of the importance of going back and rebuilding their own darn communities and retaining their wealth and power in their own communities and being a competitive people. They're locked into, they've been brainwashed to the point they love social integration. They find comfort in giving their money to other people outside their community so people can take that money and make it into a weapon or tool and come back and knock their brains out with it. That's our problem. We believe in subsidizing everybody else while they boycott you. So until we stop being social integrationists and start rebuilding our own communities, practicing group economics. I've talked about all these things in Powernomics and Black Labor and in the Black History Reader. I've explained all these things. And even though my books have been the best-selling books around the world, you still find it hard for some of these blacks to go buy the books. They'd rather spend money having parties and enjoying themselves rather than get some understanding and enrichments of what they should be doing, Dr. Watkins.
Well, the good thing I can say is that, I meet a lot of people on the street all the time, every day, who love what you're doing. You know what I mean? They love what you're doing. They love the Black Business School, the Black Wealth Boot Camp. They just really have a lot of respect for intelligence, things that are black. I think they're coming along. Just today, I met several people on the street that congratulate us on all the work that's being done. And I think it's going to take some time, but I think that there's a lot of hope, And for those of you that actually do want to get copies of Dr. Anderson's books, you can get them in two places. We've got some, of course, at blacklaborwhitewealth.com. That's blacklaborwhitewealth.com. Also, you can go to harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. I hope you'll go to harvestinstitute.org and make a donation and support what Dr. Anderson's doing. And what we can do is offer you something just for being a part of this podcast. Just for the next 24 hours, if you go to theblackbusinessschool.com and you sign up for any class, you can get 50% off now and forever. Just use the code POWERNOMICS. If you use the code POWERNOMICS for the next, we'll leave it up for 24 to 36 hours. But if you go to use the code POWERNOMICS, you can go sign up for any class you want, 50% off. That means if there's a monthly fee, then your fee is half off forever. So we have Black Money 102, which is for investing in the stock market. If you want your kids to sign up and learn wealth for your children, have them go to blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. Take your kids to blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com and use the code POWERNOMICS. You can get 50% off. Same thing goes for the family. Now we have one. Let
Can I make one comment before you go on to the next? I just follow what you're saying. I must confess that I am I'm proud of the fact that that I have a significant Black support in this country for my books and around the world. And even with the Harvest Institute, I'm proud of the fact that you've done a lot to try to help the Institute for raising funds. And we've had some very positive, strong feedback and donations for the, for the Harvest Institute. But right now, my books I've gotten from either from Amazon, who still rate my books as #1. Amazon rates it as #1 for political economics in the country. And when I get word from the lawyers around the country that says in France, and they call Daily Motions, it said there are over 250,000 people around the world now trying their best to figure out how to use it, to take some of those resources, even though a lot of them are not even Blacks. There are Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics reading it. And so, but I said, I didn't write those books. I didn't write my books for Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics. I wrote them for Black folk. But so a group called Daily Motions out of Nice, France, their report said there's over 250,000 sites where people are trying to use the things I talk about for Black folk and use it to help themselves, enrich themselves. And they say in the United States, we still got a lot of Blacks who either can't afford and don't want to read the books. And but I do have a large following in the United States, and I'm thankful and grateful for those people. And even for the Harvest Institute, they make their little small donations, but those small donations have been very helpful, and I love them for doing it. And I know they do the best they can. And then answer a question you asked me about a month or so ago, do the wealthy Blacks contribute? No, I've never had any wealthy Blacks. I'm sure they're busy taking care of their own business and doing their own thing, so I don't fault them. But no wealthy Blacks have ever made any significant donations to the Harvest Institute. What kept us going is small Blacks, poor Blacks, who are trying their best, struggling, trying to get out of a ditch.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna try to help change that. I know that in the Black Business School, I know that we've tried to do what we can to help the Harvest Institute. By basically doing as much business with you as we can, and pushing people for donations. But I just went to the Nike campus, and I was in the Michael Jordan building, and I was talking to the Black men that run that company. And I think now that I think about it, I think one of the things I'm gonna ask them to consider is to look into support for what you're doing with Powernomics and the Harvest Institute. I think that, it's time for the Black athletes to kind of wake up and understand cooperative economics, and to understand that, cooperative economics or economic empowerment is not just putting money into the hands of, the Jewish guy or the Italian guy that's representing you. It's about coming back to your community and doing cooperative actions. I mean, when you look at some of these NBA players, they got $20 million, $25 million a year contracts. They could fund a think tank by themselves with their spare change. They could literally take the money that some of these guys spend on strippers. Floyd Mayweather's stripper budget is enough to fund an entire school system. The amount of money that he spends on European clothes and cars is enough to educate 20,000 people a year. So I think that it's time for us to really talk about that, sort of take a freeze frame. So there's a lot of people here watching. By the time we get done with this video, I bet 100,000 people will have seen this video. And some of y'all are connected to these guys. Some of y'all might actually be in the NBA and NFL. I meet NFL, NBA players that know about what we're doing all the time. And I just really need you to really stop for a minute and just ask yourself, what am I doing? Be conscious of your actions. Money gets wasted when you spend it unconsciously. Just the same way when a woman's unconscious, how it makes her vulnerable to someone that may want to take something away from her. Well, when your spending is unconscious, then people will take things away from you too. So be conscious. Stop for a minute. Look at your dollars in your pocket and say, why am I giving my money to this person here when I could be putting my money toward this thing over there? And now, Dr. Anderson, there's one brother in here.
Yeah. See, but Dr. Watkins, I understand why a lot of the well-off Blacks don't give to the Harvest Institute, because a lot of them, they're under mandate not to do it, because they put their safe category or their position, a meritorious manumission, at risk, because they're under the guise and the eyes of people, of white, non-Black managers and publicists and people that control them. And if you were to go back and look at the sports team, you'll find that almost 100% of all the teams, sports teams, I don't care what sports it is, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, car, whatever you name, it's all controlled by whites. They know that. And so I understand why they don't want to take the risk of saying, You can't be caught doing anything to help black folk to help themselves. I understand that. So I don't criticize them. And I understand that. And I know that they've been taught that that if they mention it, if you got a $20 million contract and it fits the tax bracket, 10 million of that's going to go for taxes, when they could have made a donation and got a tax write-off from making a contribution to the Harvest Institute. I understand that. So that doesn't bother me. And see, because I still love them all. I love those in the overclass and the underclass. But we are now a permanent underclass, and if they don't give to the Harvest Institute, it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to beg them for money. I'm going to keep doing the best I can, as I've been doing for all of my life, fighting strictly and solely for black folk. I'm unapologetic about that. I don't get into any horizontal issues. I'm not into the religious issues, the cultural issues, the political party issues, the handicap issues, the poor people issues, the poverty issues. I'm strictly into ourism and blackism, and I'm not against anybody else. I don't hate anybody else, and I just said I'm for black folk, and nobody's gonna ever change my mind about that.
Well, you know, I think things are changing with the athletes. I think that there's some hope in there. I've talked to some guys that seem like their head is there. I think they're ready, and I think they do have the freedom. They're not as afraid as you might think. I think it's a matter of awareness and education. I really think. In fact, I'm gonna do something about that. In about the next month or so, I'm gonna come to you with some ideas, because I know some people, and I'm gonna call them and talk to them and see what they have to say about it, and see what can be done in that area. The last thing I want to throw out here for you, Dr. Anderson, is as I promised, those who came in from Black Enough, I told you guys we'd have time for at least one question. And I see Clarence Muhammad Johnson has had his hand up for a while. I don't know if it's Clarence Johnson Muhammad or Clarence Muhammad Johnson, but either way, I'm going to let you in, brother. So if you can ask a very quick question with Dr. Anderson, I know he's got to go. So if you have a quick question, man, I'm going to hit the button and allow you to talk in 3, 2, 1, and go. Let's see if we can get him in here. All right, let me see. I'm going to hit the unmute button and see if I can. Hey, Clarence, can you hear me?
Okay, I just unmuted myself. This is my first time dealing with this platform, so I had to make an adjustment studying as I go and listening. But as the state coordinator for the Million Man March 25 years ago, and all the momentum that went on during that time, it's still going on. It's an onward march. But what I want to ask a question about is there's a new company based out of Germany called Carrot Bars International that I'm excited about, that I've gotten involved in. Are you familiar with that company any at all?
We don't know about it, but I don't really want you to promote a company on here until we've had a chance to really vet it, man. So okay, because I don't know. I don't want it, because if something goes wrong, people are gonna come back and blame me. But what is your question, brother?
The thing is, it makes sense. You know, it's dealing with pooling resources, and it's dealing with for the action agenda, economic action agenda items that was a part of the Million Family March national agenda. You know, support wealth accumulation, seminars, community meetings, local campaigns, promote asset development management. All the things you
don't mind getting to your question, do you? Because Dr. Anderson's got to go. Well, what's your question, sir?
First question was, I wanted to get you all's assessment of the company, but since you're not familiar with it, I guess that pretty much closes this conversation for now. But I did post some information in the comments section. I guess if you ever get a chance to take a look at it, you know, you're more than welcome to. Because I really want to know more. I've just gotten involved in it, and the address is www.therealmoney.info. But there's a lot of some of these wealthy millionaires that you guys are talking about. Because in other words, it's usually black folk, when something new comes on the scene, we usually end up getting in on the tail end of it. And so therefore, anything like that, online marketing, anything of that nature, we usually the last ones to see it for the most part, and even when it comes to pooling our resources where it's going to benefit us. So and some of it's just ignorance, and some of it's just, you know, we
right. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, man. You know, Dr. Anderson, one thing I'll say is that, you know, I think that what, you know, what he was mentioning, you know, accurately, that when something big and something good happens, a lot of times black folks are slow to move and slow to invest in it and things like that. I think one of the challenges, though, is that there's a lot of new stuff that comes out that really isn't, you know, isn't legitimate. You know, like there was this company called BitConnect there was back, back when Bitcoin was really, really big. And everybody kept telling me, tell everybody about BitConnect. You got to talk about BitConnect. And then eventually I even had representatives from the company telling me to, bring them on my show so they could talk about BitConnect. And I said, you can't come on because I don't think BitConnect's a legitimate company. And they got real mad at me for that. And then later on, BitConnect went bankrupt. They took everybody's money. And so I think that's the problem. It's no disrespect to what this brother was doing. I understand, if people want to go look out, I mean, if you're in the chat, you see the URL, you can feel free to go check it out. But I think that's one of the big challenges is that when you have people trying to build wealth, how do you deal with, as a community, Dr. Anderson, with the fact that sometimes the mistrust comes, well, because there are people who raise money in the Black community, didn't deliver what they promised they were going to do, we're taking people's money, running off with it. You got some of the pimps in the pulpit, some of the, the pastors that not all of them, but some of them that will take your money and do what only God knows what with it. When you're joining something, how do you deal with that distrust issue? It seems like Black folks have a real issue with being able to trust each other, but sometimes it's because you got some scam artists out here that are really trying to manipulate people. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Anderson? How do you balance that?
Well, I understand the question, and but don't be particularly upset because you got some scam artists in the Black race. Every race got scam artists. Every religion got them. Every culture has them. Every ethnic group has them. You got scam. The white society is overrun with scam artists. That's nothing new. The problem is that the reason Black folk have such a minimum amount of trust is for a very specific reason. That is that they don't have communities. You don't have a basic foundation for trust. If you're socially integrated, why would you have trust in anybody? Supposing right now, if I had all kind of people coming up all over your city that you don't know anything about, you don't know them, they want you to do this and do that, and you don't have a sense of community. See, a community is where you come together and you pool your resources. A community is where you store your culture, your history, your facts, your businesses, your opportunity, your wealth, your tax base, and your camaraderie and your sense of community. And your sense of obligation, your well-being is stored in a community. Dr. Watkins, you do not have not one single Black community in America. All you got are Black neighborhoods. A Black neighborhood is a bucket with a hole in it. You pour water in and runs out of. A neighborhood is like the Holiday Inn. A neighborhood is where you eat and sleep. You cannot build trust in neighborhoods. It cannot be done. You're stepping on the gas at the same time you got your foot on the brakes. Nobody's going to invest with you living in a neighborhood. You got to have a community and pull those communities together. And once you put those communities together, you got a foundation. And then when people get to know each other in a community, they know each other. They know who lives next door. They know everybody's kids. They take care of each other. They share with each other. They buy from each other. They support each other. They elect politicians to represent them. That is a community. They know each other. And once you get to know each other and you're familiar with each other, you can move to the next level. The next level up from a community is trust. Once you move, and once you know people, then you trust them. You go next door. And if in the old days we had communities, my mother could leave the house and say, "I'm going downtown, Miss Mary. Would you watch the house? I'll leave the door wide open. You want something, go get it." And you see somebody come through your front door and go to your back door. You trust people when you know them. As long as you're socially integrated, you would never have trust in the Black community. It can't be done. That's why everybody else builds communities. That's why we go to Detroit. They got an Arab town, Chinatown, Greek town, Pole town, Hockett towns. Everybody got towns where they know each other, love each other, respect each other, buy from each other, support each other, protect each other. Blacks don't have anybody doing these things. We don't have those things. We are socially integrated. And once you get a trust level, then you can go to the next level. You start to learn how to hold people accountable. Once you got trust, you will invest with them. And once you invest with them, you know how to hold them accountable because they all live with you. They all live in the same neighborhood. You're not going to rip somebody off that easily. They live 3 or 4 doors down, and you take their money and you know them. But if they're scattered all over the country, and integrated, they can rip you off in Alabama because you live in California. You got to go build communities. And I wish Black folks quit talking about trust and same time trying to socially integrate. It'll never work. There's no way it work in theory or practice.
Wow, that's a great point. Because when you do have those communities, trust is maintained because if you violate the trust, people will come and deal with you. They'll come and get you.
They know where to find you.
Yeah, well, it's real funny. I'll say this, then I'll let you get the last word. when I was in South Africa, I went to one of the slums, and if you see a real slum like in another country, in a country like a South Africa, you know that it's a different level of poverty. In the United States, we think we got a lot of poverty. We don't have as much as they have in other. I mean, I'm talking about these houses were torn down. It was a lot of problems, not even running water, right? So I was in this slum and walking around talking to to the different people, and I asked one of the ladies that was with us got a little bit nervous. She didn't know the neighborhood she was in, and so I think a couple guys were kind of looking at her funny, and I said to one of the guys that were there, I said, how do you know, like, how do you stop people from committing crimes? Just coming through here and taking somebody's purse or beating them up and taking their money. And he said, because if they see that you are robbing somebody and that you are a crook, he said, everybody in this neighborhood will beat your ass. He said, they will chase you down and they will beat you to half to death and might even kill you. And it seemed that they just kind of had a code, code of conduct, as you always talk about, that because they had a community. It might not have been a wealthy community, but it was still a community. And I think that, that's something we've just really lost that. I don't think any of us even know what that feels like anymore. We fantasize about it, but we don't have it anymore. So Dr. Anderson, I'll let you get the last word.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, please. Did you?
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. See, either to get to the question that you raised earlier, you either got to have a community or a sense of community. And if you have a community or a sense of community, then inside there you have a code of conduct. It tells you how to operate, how to live, how to trust, how to take care of each other. And then those who violate it will be punished. And they'll be excommunicated out of the race, or they'll be punished for doing things that are backwards to the race. And that's true in even when I met with some groups down in Puerto Rico with Indian tribes in America, the Apache Indians and other groups, and the Asians from Chinatown and San Francisco. What he talked about, they had the hatchet men and the tongs. That said, if you violate people in Chinatown, we don't have to have police in Chinatown. They would not let whites come into Chinatown as police officers. They said, we have a group called the tongs and the hatchet men. You violate us and mistreat our community, you better get out of town before the sun goes down, because we're going to cut your throats. And see, black folks don't have a code of conduct. So consequently, in black neighborhoods are wide open, no code of conduct. Anybody can come in there anytime, day or night. It's not marked, it's not locked and protected. People can come in at night and they can run drugs, they can run prostitution, they can run stolen merchandise, and they can dump garbage in black neighborhoods. Nobody cares. There's no code of conduct, and there's no community or a sense of community. And therefore, nobody trusts people to take care of each other. So consequently, black folks, they better get serious. You better quit trying to integrate. If you're going to continue to integrate, you better get a sense of community, which means that I don't care what, even if I don't live in a community, if I move away outside of it, I'm still obligated and bound to it. Just like Italians in Little Italy up in Philadelphia, which says that I might not live in Little Italy anymore, but as an Italian, every week I'm going back down to Little Italy to buy from, support, and do and help them in anything they have a need and a dilemma to have to be rectified and cured. And see, we won't do that. What we do is to try to move out of the neighborhood, as fast as we can, to go live in somebody else's neighborhood where we are a guest. Black folk have been conditioned since the civil rights movement to be guests, not to own and control a damn thing, but just to be there as a guest, to get along with people rather than trying to come together and get along with their own people.
So, well, you said it all, Dr. Anderson, and as always, this has been a great pleasure to talk to you. Everybody, make sure you go visit harvestinstitute.org, harvestinstitute.org. Consider making a donation. Consider just supporting in some way, buying Dr. Anderson's books. They're on Amazon. We have a lot of his copies of books at blacklaborwhitewealth.com. That's blacklaborwhitewealth.com. We're making this movement happen. It does help when people participate. It does help, for example, when you get it. Oh, go ahead.
And tell them Dr. Watkins that also with the Harvest Institute, we're really intensifying our efforts with our lawsuits for the 1866 Indian treaties, because we're looking forward to being able to capture billions of dollars that are due to black folk in America. And we got about 4 other major lawsuits that are going to be coming up that represents billions upon billions of dollars that black folks should have gotten out of various kind of treaties. But we'll be talking about that later on. But right now, the 1866 Indian Treaty is our spear point. We're pressing hard. And the monies that come into the Harvest Institute, That's where the money go to cover the legal fees, the fining fees, the printing costs, and everything, and operational for the operational responsibilities of the Harvest Institute.
All right. Well, y'all heard it there. And another thing too, you know, Dr. Anderson, I believe that if somebody supports what you're doing, when I support what you're doing, I'm not even asking what you're doing with the money. You know, I would pay you money just because you're doing something good for the community. I don't, you know, you ain't got to tell me that it's for printing costs and stuff like that. I think a lot of us, you know, a lot of times we end up being pressured to justify what we're going to do with the money. Well, guess what? Most of y'all here watching, you know, you might have spent money this week with, you know, at Kmart. You know, you didn't ask them what they're doing with the money. You might have went to the grocery store. You didn't ask them what they're doing with the money. Some of y'all went to Starbucks. You didn't ask Starbucks what they're doing with the money. And I can tell you what they're doing with the money. They ain't helping black folks with their money. That's for damn sure. You know, so I don't really care what you do with the money. I just want to see you win. And I think the two big things I've supported this year that I'm hoping will do well because of it is the Harvest Institute and the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. I lend my support to Jay Morrison and what he's doing to raise that money. I think what he's doing is wonderful. I think what you're doing is wonderful. We need think tanks. We need mutual funds. We need all of these things. And so everybody, I hope you guys will just, just hear us when we say that this is what it is. You know, you got some educators who are also active. We're part activists, part business people, part college professors, and you see me in here every day doing this. This is not a game. This is not an act. I'm not pretending. You can't pretend for 10, 12, 15 years. Dr. Anderson can't pretend for the last 40, 50 years that he's been doing this. This is as real as it gets, you know, and so I encourage you to compare that to, you know, some politician, some shiny new politician that comes along. Well, you didn't even know who that guy was 10 years ago. No, I might be talking about like a Barack Obama, but I'm not disrespecting him. I'm just saying that you have to ask yourself honestly, you know, just like a child, you know, when they're trying to decide which parent is most dedicated to them, it ain't the parent that takes them to Disneyland and shows up at Christmas buying the shiny toys. It's the parent who fed you every day and who's been there with you since you were little, even when you were broke, cold, and lonely and defenseless. Dr. Anderson fits into that category, you know, and there's a lot of other people out there that are doing the same thing. And I commend everybody in your own communities who are doing the same thing. So once again, the URL is harvestinstitute.org. Once again, if you go to the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com, for the next 36 hours, any class you take, you can join for 50% off. Use the code POWERNOMICS. The code will end in 36 hours. So go to theblackbusinessschool.com, use the code POWERNOMICS. We got the courses for children. We got real estate, stocks and bonds. We got all of that stuff. Anything you want to learn, we hope you'll get educated with us. So thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. It was great talking to you, my friend.
All right, thank you. And again, I wish that I had been able, in 26 years that the Harvest Institute's been in business, I wish I had been in a position to draw a salary. I've never be able to draw a salary in 26 years out of the Harvest Institute. And that's because we never had the resources. But even more importantly, I had about 2 opportunities, and I need your listeners to hear this, and I'm going to go and hang up. But I had 2 opportunities which I missed, where I could have been made comfortable all my life. And one occurred in Texas and one occurred in Florida, where the white power structure told me very specifically, said, Dr. Anderson, he said, you're an exemplary black person. You've been able to ascend to the highest levels in government with governors and presidents, and to have in business and power and corporations, and also be over education for an entire state, the head trade missions of third world countries, and mess with all kinds of agencies. And if you play your cards right, you'll never have to work another day in your life. And I said, really? And I said, they said, yeah, you have it made. And they told me that in Texas on one group, and one other group told me later on in Florida. And I said, what does it mean playing my cards right? They said, just stay away from the racial issues and we'll take care of you. And so now, after that's been at least 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So now I'm going through an agonizing reappraisal saying, damn, I must have torn my butt. I said, why would I pay it passed out? And I said, there I am. I'm not on anybody's payroll. I haven't been on anybody's payroll since 1990. What's this? That's how many years ago?
28 years.
Almost 30 years ago. I'm not on anybody's payroll. And I'm foolish enough to just take care of black folk. And I've had a lot of black folk promise me a lot of things. Dr. Anderson, you've been fighting for so long around the world. One day I'm gonna do this. I mean, in fact, an Indian group they just got a good head start on maybe getting some reparations. down in, I think it's Louisiana. They said, Dr. As we're on track now, because of you, we might get $250 million. They said the first time we get this money, first thing we do is take care of you, do something for you. But I've been happy, and I said, I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, but don't worry about it. And all my life, I've had all kind of promises of blacks going to do this and give me this and give me that, help me. And they were good-hearted people. They had good intentions, but they never got the resources. And ones who did have the resources, they never did anything. So, but I forgive both groups. I know both those who do and those who don't. I still love all of them. And I have missed any breakfasts and meals, and I'm still alive and kicking. And I know I'm foolish, but because of my love for black folk. But that's how I devoted my life, just taking care of black folk. And I'm not going to give it up. But I might be poor, but I still love black folk. That makes me rich because I do love them.
Well, you made a great investment. You made a great investment, and everybody, there's a lot of people in here that I think are going to really be supportive of what you're doing, and I know I'm supportive. So thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. It was wonderful getting a chance to speak to you today.
All right, thank you, buddy. You have a good day now.
All right, you too, my friend. You too.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye now. Okay, everybody. So those who still want to hang out for a minute, I just want to say that if you want to go to support what Dr. Anderson is doing, the URL, once again, is harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. Also, if you're not a member of Black Enough yet, if you haven't joined our social media platform, it's a lot like Facebook, except it's black and you have free speech. Nobody's going to ban you for calling somebody a coon or whatever. Just be respectful. I mean, you ain't got to call nobody a coon, but we allow freedom of speech. You can reach people and things like that. There's no rules the way it is on Facebook. Feel free to join us at blackenough.com, BLAGGENUF. That's BLAGGENUF. And one of the benefits of joining Black Enough is that when I go live like this, I send the Black Enough members a notification right when I go live, or right before, maybe in 30 minutes before, so you can actually get that notification. If you are through Facebook, I may or may not reach you, because at Facebook, I have hundreds of thousands of people that follow me on Facebook, but I can only reach maybe a couple thousand of people at a time. So it's easier to reach you through Black Enough. So just join, at least so you can get the notifications, and you'll probably like it. There's a lot of cool black people up in there, and it's really good stuff. And so also the other thing too is that to Dr. Anderson's point about supporting what he's doing, the reason he brings it up like that is because there have been a lot of celebrities, a lot of big name celebrities, we won't call them out, but they'll call up and say, we love what you're doing, I love you, I think you're great. And they'll make promises, and I don't really listen to celebrity promises. Most celebrities, most mainstream Negroes, they know that talk is cheap, so they know that they can talk about what they're going to do, when really many of them don't actually have any real power, they don't have any real money, and they don't have any real discipline when it comes to following through on the things they say they're going to do. So they make a lot of promises about coming through and supporting the Harvest Institute, but they don't follow through. The difference in this community, and I consider all of us to be the conscious community. I'm part of the conscious community. Now, you ain't gonna, I'm not the guy with the dashiki. I'm not the guy that's always wearing the ankh. I got one, but I'm not necessarily rooted in that type of conscious community. But to me, the conscious community is any community where you are conscious about your blackness, conscious about your power, conscious about bringing your community together, conscious about being intelligent and educated, conscious about building. So I'm part of the conscious community. And the beauty of the conscious community, I know a lot of people, mainstream Negroes, like those Negroes at the root and stuff like that, they want to make fun of the conscious community because it's not bright and shiny like the integrated community. When you sit next to the white man in the white man's business and his office and at his university, it makes you feel like you are somebody. And it goes back to a saying I heard a guy make in that movie House of Cards. He said, some people think that proximity to power means that you actually wield it. And what that means is that some people think that, some Negroes think that because I'm next to the white man's power, that means I got power. Well, you ain't got no real power. That's his power. He could take that away from anything somebody could just take away from you like that ain't really yours. It was never yours to begin with. But a lot of Negroes forget about that. They're like the apple sitting next to the tree, and you think you came from that same tree when really you came from a different tree and they just planted you next to the tree, and you think somehow you're connected to the tree that you're sitting next to. You're not. That's not your power. In this space, we have real power, and so what happens is the people in the conscious community are the best support system that there is, because people in the conscious community ain't sitting around waiting for motherfucking Superman. Excuse my French. They're not sitting around waiting for some white man to write a big check. They ain't waiting for some TV network to greenlight their show. They're
Greetings
not
and
sitting around.
salutations.
Ah, shit.
I'm Christopher Platt. reporting for
Sorry,
your Black
guys.
World.
My computer sometimes takes a life of its own. They're not sitting around waiting for white folks to give the stamp of approval for them to do anything. They just get up and do it. You know, I could call out people in the conscious community and say, let's build a school tomorrow. Let's raise some money and build a school. And they would show up and do it. They would either donate money or donate time or both, because there's a difference between Black folks that have internally driven momentum versus Black people who are just bandwagon Negroes who just ride the wave. Right? A lot of people just ride the wave. That's why if you look on Black Twitter, for example, you'll see people that if white folks start talking about immigration, they'll start tweeting about immigration. If white folks start talking about Trump, they'll start talking about Trump. If white folks start talking about Me Too, they start talking about Me Too. All they know how to do is ride the wave. They don't know how to create the momentum that actually creates the wave. So the waves of the conscious community may not be as big right now as the waves that you see in mainstream America, right? Because we don't own the CNNs and the NBCs and all that. But believe me, the waves that are created by us are for us, and they are our waves, and we can push them in whatever direction we want, and we just have to keep making them stronger. And in a generation, our waves will be as big as everybody else's waves. So ultimately, I think the conscious community is what's going to drive the support behind things like the Harvest Institute. I'm not really waiting for mainstream Negroes. I don't care about no Negro up in Hollywood who got ahead because he's tickled some Jewish man's balls. I ain't trying to worry about some athlete who's been so busy thinking about throwing a football that he ain't thought nothing about being Black and being intelligent. I'm not waiting for some politician who is bought and sold and owned by all these corporations who are throwing them around like a $2 hoe. I'm looking for that mother who is educating her own kids, and who started her own business, and who's standing by that Black man who's in the struggle too. I'm looking for that brother who says, look, I got a degree in engineering. I'm about to quit this job so I can go out here and build this company. It may not be much, but it's going to be mine. I'm looking for those people that really, really just understand that if you don't do it, then it ain't going to get done. It ain't going to get done. And that takes a certain mindset, you know. And what I want you to challenge yourself on this. I want you to challenge yourself on measuring your words with your actions and getting to the point where you devalue talk and you increase your value on action, right? You have, in fact, I don't really care how much, I mean, I don't say I don't care. I appreciate the fact that you love what we do. I like the fact if you think it's great and you tell me, I'm never going to disrespect that. But that doesn't mean anything if we're not helping each other, if we're not doing something. Just like same thing, I could tell you I love you and I'm down for Black people, but if I ain't doing nothing, then what does that really matter? You know, so I would say that we have to start measuring ourselves not by our words, but what we're actually doing. And so I encourage you to be a doer. Be a doer first in your own life. Be a doer in the lives of your children. Be a doer when it comes to your family. Be a doer when it comes to your community. Be a doer when it comes to the things that you believe in, because we're our only hope. We are our only hope. If the Black community rises, it's gonna rise not because of the Negroes on TV. If the Black community rises, it will rise because of the Negroes who've been abandoned by mainstream America, those who've been rejected by mainstream America and white supremacist institutions. It's not, you know, the greatest entrepreneurs of the next generation won't be raised by the Black man who rose up the ladder in corporate America. They're gonna be raised by the Black man who couldn't get a job because he got a weed conviction in 1995, but learned how to hustle on the block and send his son to business school so he could come back and run the family business and make it into a multi-million-dollar company. Those are the people that are going to elevate the community. I did not become a powerful Black man when I was down on my knees serving a white man. I was never a powerful Black man when I was under the thumb of a white man. I did not become a powerful Black man until I was broken down, booted out, and rejected by white supremacist systems. I did not become a powerful and great scholar until I was rejected by every white university in this country for being too radical. And the reason I love Dr. Claude Anderson, the reason I bring him in here, and the reason I asked him to join the Black Business School is because he was the first person that I ever met, first scholar I ever met, who told me that being radical was a good thing. He was the first scholar I ever met who said, you know, I said, well, they call you radical if you talk too much about being Black. He said, being radical is the best thing you can be. Because the opposite of being radical means you're just going along with the norm. And if you're going along with white supremacy, then goddamn it, why don't you just become a white supremacist? Just join the Klan right now. Because if you are fitting in to a white supremacist system and your black ass is making white folks comfortable at every turn and every institution comfortable and allowing them to go on with business as usual, and you know these are white supremacist institutions, then what does that say about you? What does that say about you? Seriously. So those of you out there, and I'm talking to my fellow rejects, I'm talking to my friends who done got fired because they said a little bit too much on the job, or who stand up, who actually have principles that they value over money, or those who are trying to find your place in the world. Understand that in that system, in that world, there is really no place for you. There is no place for you 9 times out of 10. There is no place for me. I don't look back and say, oh my God, I wonder if I can get a job at the University of Nebraska. Because I was trained by the best finance PhDs on the planet, but I know that they wouldn't hire me because none of those white boys would want a guy like me around. So I don't even look back at that world to find my place. I realized that God built me to create a place of my own. I'm not the person who's supposed to walk down a trail that's carved out by somebody else. I'm supposed to be a trailblazer. And it's hard as hell to be a trailblazer. Only the strongest can be trailblazers. That's why only about 10%, less than 10% of all black folks that I meet on the street are going to be down with anything that we're doing here, because everybody ain't strong enough to be a trailblazer. But the fact that you're sitting here watching this right now, the fact that a bunch of people might have, hung up on the live stream, or they got other things to do and you're still on here right now, tells me there's something inside of you that's better and stronger and more gifted than 99% of the Negroes out here. And I just want to encourage you to go grab that gift. Find that gift, dig for that gift, and do not be ashamed of that gift. And if you keep on working it, just keep on working it, just keep on working it, keep on working it, then one day you're going to wake up and you're going to have more power than you ever thought you'd ever have. Most of you will. Just to be honest with you, some of you might not get what you want. But never think that you're not going to get it eventually. If it don't come in this generation, it'll come in the next. If you don't get it, then your children will. Your children will remember watching daddy struggle and hustle and being an independent black man. And next thing you know, your daughter is a multimillionaire. My grandmother never saw real power in this world. My grandmother, I talk about my grandma all the time. She was born in 1936. She raised 4 kids by herself. She was a single black mother who never got a college degree, and she was always in the struggle up until the last day she was here, but she was very financially responsible, and that's where I learned about money. I watched my grandmother manage. My grandmother could make $1 out of 15 cents any day of the week, and it's because of my grandmother's struggle that I became the man I am today. So understand that power, sometimes you may think it's a solo race, but sometimes you run in a relay race. But either way, you got to run the race as fast as you can, because that's the only thing that will give us a chance to win. Because I'm going to tell you what, I'm just going to be honest with you. Most of the Negroes you see on TV are running backward. They're running backwards. They're running in circles. They're running sideways. And that's why these niggas are always confused. Excuse my French. That's why they're always confused, because they're up here trying to make sense of a system that does not make any sense. They're trying to be pro-black in a system that does not appreciate pro-blackness. They're trying to find a place in a place where they have no place. Find a place of your own. That's what I believe in. That's my philosophy, and that's what I'm here for. I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day. Don't forget, hit the like button, share button, subscribe button, all that stuff. Please share this conversation. Also, join us. If you haven't joined us at blackenough.com, make sure you sign up, BLAGGENUF.com. And also, if you go to theblackbusinessschool.com, that's theblackbusinessschool.com, use the code POWERNOMICS, and you can get anything half off for the next couple of days. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day. I'll probably chime in a couple of days. All right, talk to you soon. Peace.